Testing 111. One, two.
Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Quite surprised to see the polarity in the audience. Gentlemen, welcome to ACC Pakistan's Finance Act session on opportunities and challenges for economic reforms. This is going to be a series of talks that we are going to hold in 6 different cities. So starting from, the journey started in Islamabad essentially when we did our post-budget event there. But now, deliberating on the current Finance Act, how does it impact the economy? What should we be looking forward to? What are the indicators so far? And where are we heading? And that's the conversation that we're going to have today in Lahore, and then on Monday in Faisalabad, and then Karachi, and then Islamabad, Peshawar, and then Multan. So I think an excellent opportunity for members and ACCA fraternity from across the country to engage with us. We're also very delighted to have about 70 or 80 members who've joined us online as well. So those who were not able to join us here, they're the ones who are going to probably sit in the comfort of their homes and offices and going to hear the conversation that we have here today. We are very, very grateful to our guest of honor today, Mr. Javed. He's the chairman of Pakistan Punjab Revenue Authority. So thank you very much for taking time out. You've always been a very, very big support for ACCA, and we'd appreciate that. We also have our senior members, Mr. Irfan Elias, with us over here. We are waiting for 2 more panelists to arrive, but we will not wait as per ACCA's sort of policy on following time. We kick off the session, and in the meanwhile, more members and panelists will join us. So let me first of all call upon stage Mr. Sajid Aslam, who is the head of ACCA Pakistan, to come over and deliver the welcome address. Sajid, can we have you over?
Assalamu alaikum. And first of all, thank you very much for taking out time. Being an accountant, I know that this is not the time of the year when everybody can spare time to discuss these things, but these things are important. And these things are part of our everyday life as we speak today. The one thing which we appreciate about the recent change, which was effective from 1st July, we have to understand that change happened after 27 years. In 1992, we started with the presumptive tax regimes, and now we are moving back where that presumptive tax is still a minimum one. We still feel as ACCA that's not a very fair taxation, but it's a journey in the right direction. So the financial statements are coming back. The P&L is again coming back as one of a base for the taxation. And then the sales tax. Either we talk about services side or we talk about the sales tax from a FPR or a taxation on the goods side. I think it's important to understand the burden of taxation can't be shared by few. And we can't let it happen, and that's a voice of accountants and the voice of ACCA as well, that we can't let it happen that there is a significant number of people who stay out of tax regimes. They have to be part of that cycle, whether they are sharing a burden or they are sharing a burden of the compliance and the visibility. There are different streams. Now, under the current tax law, even if I'm not liable to pay tax, but I'm liable to file my return and declare what I have earned, what are my assets, and that help us to improve the quality of GDP, how we measure it and how we reflect it. And the GDP and the growth and the quality of the GDP and the quality of the measurement of the GDP is a one thing which the international community values a lot. It's very difficult to explain the world that we are $1 trillion market where our documented GDP is not crossing even 350 billion. We were 315 last year, and now with the current dollar rate, we might go down. But we know, and there is enough empirical evidence exists out there that the parallel economy and the size of that economy is quite big. And to bring that in that particular cycle and the measurement and the documentation, there's a role which we have to play as an accountant. Every one of us, we have to go back to the core where we exist to uphold the public trust. When we are advising somebody, we should be advising ethically. And when we say ethically, we mean what the law says and what the person should be doing. The cost of non-compliance, and believe me, in my experience, anybody who tried to evade tax in the period of 5 to 7 years, they ended up paying similar or higher amount one way or other just to cover their non-compliances. There are businesses who really undertook or who were practicing something which was not ethical. Today they are struggling even to bring that money in the documented economy and to take advantage of some of the opportunities which very much exist in Pakistan in terms of business, in terms of the returns which they can generate. Similarly, if we really want to grow international in terms of our business, it's entirely not possible if we are not part of the documented economy and we are not complied with the taxation and the foreign exchange regulation. We cannot send that money out of Pakistan to expand. And there are opportunities in today's world while we are becoming a global part of a global economy where we have opportunities outside Pakistan while our business may reside in Pakistan as a primary business or a principal business place. These opportunities can only be attained or captured by the businesses who understand the importance of staying in a compliance zone. And us as an accountant and ACCA as an accounting body, we feel it's our role, not the responsibility, but the obligation to drive those behaviors and help organization to act very responsibly in the society to ensure that the burden of tax should be shared by everybody equally and fairly to make sure our growth becomes sustainable. Otherwise, we will keep seeing a growth trajectory of 4 to 5 years and then the downturn for another 4 to 5 years and then again a small cycle. This is not a sustainable economic model which we are looking for. At the same time, as an accountant, we have to understand and we have to work with government to make them understand that tax is a byproduct of the business. Businesses are not there to generate taxation. Businesses are there to generate employment. Businesses are there to add value. Businesses are there to solve problems which in everyday life a consumer or citizen face otherwise and make profit. Making profit is okay. More profit mean more employment, more investment, and more taxation. The policies and the way those policies should be implemented, this is the voice of ACCA and you are the voice of ACCA at the same time. We have to go back and help government to understand where the businesses are suffocating or they are struggling in terms of even despite their willingness, sometimes it's become very, very difficult to comply with the law just because of the complexity or some of the demands which government has may not really in line what the ground realities are. And then the transition, while we are talking about the transition and we are very thankful to Javed sir for the progressive thought process. That's what we are expecting from the regulator who understand the businesses and who really help businesses to understand the law at the same time and create a space for both the regulator and the businesses to create that compliance environment and incentive within that compliance environment at the same time. And that's what, as a ACCA, we have to raise our voice and we are willing, and we are working with the government side as well, but we are working with the business side as well. And we take a lot of pride when people do recognize that when ACCA member get engaged with the businesses, they help businesses to see the future with the right perspective. And there is a lot of pride which we take as a ACCA body that our members are rightly representing our brand in a way the brand should be represented. And we do expect that our qualification, our ethical modules, our training competency framework, and you as an individual are going to uphold that public trust for which ACCA exists. The core existence of ACCA is to work in public interest and uphold public trust and make sure when we raise our voice for a fair taxation once it's come to the taxation. So thank you very much for taking out time. And I believe and I hope you will enjoy this conversation, which is going to take place here, as well as you will take that conversation back to your businesses, back to your employers, and you build it further and ensure that compliance environment which regulator and businesses are trying to create generate incentive for everybody to create employment and development and very, very inclusive development where we become more relevant to the world and we can ask for a fair share of the global GDP for our population and our young population here in Pakistan. So welcome you to this session and thank you very much again for taking out time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sujit. Very pertinent thoughts, I think. Sustainable economic growth only possible if everybody who has to pay tax should pay tax. Government to understand business models and the necessities or bottlenecks that businesses face in order to make sure that there is less complexity of the taxation system. Um, ACCA has been a very strong voice on taxation around the world. And ACCA globally operates a taxation forum as well. And one of our members from Pakistan is a part of that global taxation forum, Mr. Umar Zahir Mir, who is our chairman of the members network panel and also the chair of the taxation subcommittee in Pakistan. So ACCA has been, like I said, I was saying to you, a very strong voice around taxation. And I think at least about 10 years back, ACCA came up with 12 basic principles of fair taxation around the world, which are applicable to any economy, any country in the world. Okay. And that sort of sets the tone right, and that's relevant even today, that these 12 principles, if reflected adequately in any country's finance act or taxation system, that taxation system can be viewed as fair. May I now, without any further ado, request the panelists to come up on the stage. I'll first of all request Mr. Javed Ahmed, the Chairman, Punjab Revenue Authority, to please come up on the stage. Thank you very much, sir. Next up, I will invite Mr. Irfan Ilyas, fellow ACCA member and partner Irfan & Co. Thank you very much. May I now request Mr. Muhammad Arshad, again a fellow ACCA member and partner Arshad Law Associates. And may I also request Mr. Umar Zahir Mir, the chairman of our members network panel and managing partner MLCC, to please come up on the stage as well. We're just waiting for the president of Okay. May I also request Mr. Mr. Ashik Ali Rana to please come up on the stage. He's the acting president of Lahore Tax Bar Association. Thank you very much, sir, for coming over. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the panel. There are two very, very senior ACCA members sitting up on the stage. By the way, if you look at the stage, it's a very strong composition of the brains of taxation within ACCA membership. So Mr. Arshad, Mr. Irfan, Mr. Omar, I think very, very strong, taxation force that we have within ACCA in Lahore. Mr. Muhammad Arshad and Mr. Irfan have been ACCA's foremost pioneering MNP and members advisory committee members. So very, very senior. I mean, at the time when I joined ACCA, this was about 15 years back, these were the members that I used to interact with, and therefore some of you may not be familiar with them. I thought it'd be good to introduce. May I now request Mr. Umar Zahir Mir to come forward and share with us, number one, those 12 principles or tenets, as we call them, of fair taxation that ACC has presented, and also talk about the Financed Act and what does it offer to us. Mr. Umar, please come forward.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbashwali Sadri wa Yassirli Amri Wahlu Uktatim Lisani Yafkahu Qawli. O Allah, open my heart and ease my task for me and remove the impediments from my speech so that they may understand what I say. First of all, following up on the leads of Sajid and Harun, I would like to thank you all for sparing the time. Obviously, it's a very pertinent session for all the professionals, more so for the tax professionals. Every year, there are two key events in the tax calendar. One is the pre-budget. ACC held that this year with a very different flavor, if I may put it that way, around it. We actually talked about our budget proposals, many of which were in unison with other professional bodies and association, and also how they were accepted and what were the impact on Pakistan's economy. So today's session is also designed in this way that we'll have a quick overview of changes, the major changes which have been introduced through Finance Act, and then we'll have a panel discussion with our esteemed guests and experts, which is more focused on the impact on businesses and the economy. So it's not just a traditional or typical conversation where we are simply talking about various sections and the tax rate changes or some procedural changes, but here we have more of a bird's eye view, where we are also looking and discussing about the impact on Pakistan's economy. So with that, let's start. As Harun just shared with you, ACCA is actually the largest global accountancy body in the world, not just at present, but in human history. It has around 219,000 members, 527,000 students in almost 179 countries, with a network of 110 offices and 7,571 approved employers worldwide. So that's quite a global presence. So that's quite a global presence. Something more interesting for you, especially for those members in the practice, we also have over 10,000 practicing firms worldwide. That's a huge number, as you can imagine. With that, let's talk a bit about our endeavors regarding taxation. ACC has been conducting research globally involving its members who are actually working in the field across the globe in various important positions, as well as key businesses, key partners, regulators, institutions, etc. And by collating all that data, all that research and insight, ACC delivers its famous research and insight reports on various subjects. One of the key things that we delivered were 12 principles which have been agreed globally, that those 12 principles are the essence and essential basis of any fair and equitable taxation system, especially more so in developing countries like Pakistan, where we need such systems. So here are those 12 tenets, as we call it. Number one, a presumption to tax neutrality. What do we mean by that? Anyone, any idea? What do you mean? Presumption to tax neutrality. Come on, we have so many tax experts, and I'm assuming all of you are members. So that's your chance. This is your chance. Any idea? We have a couple of hands there. Well done. So just very to the point, what do you think this means?
Assalamu alaikum.
Mhm.
Presumption tax means the final tax regime. To the neutrally means the tax slab rates should apply on that.
Okay, good. Thanks for your input. So yes, presumption to tax neutrality, that a taxation system should be such equitable that it does not discriminate against anyone. Now, this does not mean that you cannot favor any unfavored sector of economy or promote certain industry, but it means that otherwise there should be a level playing field. It shouldn't be that if there is a salaried class that is very highly taxed and they do have to pay their due taxes, but there is another class which has very low tax rates, and even then they are not coming within the tax net. So if you have such a system, unfortunately, which we see in our country, it is bound to create doom. Next up, openness and transparency. It's self-explanatory. The more open and transparent a tax system is, the more confidence the ordinary populace and taxpayer would have in that system. Then we also have simplification. I guess this was mentioned, if I recall correctly, by Sajid. He stressed that the essence for any effective tax system, especially in developing countries, is the simplification of the laws, because at times there is will by the people to comply, but the laws are just so much complicated that it's very hard for most of the people to comply in terms of the time and the skill set and the cost needed just to ensure the compliance. So the more simplified the system is, the higher the compliance. Next up is certainty. You should know what your tax cost would be. You should be certain there wouldn't be any unexpected changes during the year, which we normally refer to as the rolling budgets. Then accountability and regular review should be there, especially internally with regard to the regulators. They should see their processes, how things are working, what needs to be changed, what can be improved. Tax policy should also be expressed as a percentage of GDP so that it can be linked with the economic policies and the impact on economy. I remember I had a discussion with Javed Saab in his office some time back, and one of the key points that we discussed, he is also a man of vision, was how our tax policies are mostly focused on revenue accumulation and not the impact they would create on various segments of economy. So the problem is that we are looking at things in isolation. We have created these boxes within which we are trying to have a look, not the bird's eye view and how these things would impact each other. So that is the need of the hour to do that. Efficiency, obviously any good tax system is supposed to be efficient. Tax shifting and hypothecation have a role to play. So what do we mean? That government must not be using tax policy just to ensure that it can achieve certain political goals by using those tax policy initiatives. Instead, the tax policy should be focused on core elements of transparency, providing equal opportunity, promoting the business environment. We have also talked about ease of doing business at various ACCA platforms. So tax is also a matter of national sovereignty. Certainly every sovereign government has the right to tax its populace and as per the needs of the economy and the national exchequer. However, that needs to be equitable. Tax is subject to the rule of law. It can't be that there can be unilateral decisions and uh, changes without taking all the stakeholders into confidence. Let me share an example very quickly. I remember when I was in UK, there was a change in the tax policy. We often talk about this example. So how the change was introduced in the first year, they educated. So there were various seminars, advertisement, TV adverts, etc., etc., and people were told that okay, this change is coming in 3 years' time. Okay, so get ready. If you need any help, call our helpline. Get ready, make these changes. Get ready. These are the changes, etc. Then the next year, they had a deadline when they needed to start developing the systems to ensure they would be in compliance. They were not needed to submit the reports according to that, but that was the deadline to start having the system. And then come the third year, the change was actually implemented. Now compare that to unfortunately how changes are made in this part of the world when one night you sleep with a different policy and the other night you wake up and boom, now it's changed. So that also create problems in terms of knowledge, in terms of implementing, in terms of people's acceptance. So that's also a part of 12 global tax tenets that we promote. Respect for human rights. Now you would say, okay, what does that have to do with the taxation policies? Any taxation policy should consider that you should not overburden any segment more than it can bear. So, for example, a very judicial tax policy would be like the higher segment of the society would be contributing more to the exchequer, and the lower segment of the society would be contributing less, which would bring that debate of tax harmonization among various bodies as well as direct versus indirect taxes. But these are the questions that we'll leave for the panel discussion later on. Avoidance of double taxation, both within the country as well as internationally. Luckily, internationally, we do have tax treaties and we do follow that to ensure that we avoid double taxation. Within Pakistan, ever since the advent of 18th Amendment and devolution of sales tax on services to the provinces, we have faced this problem where there have been jurisdictional and interpretational issues among various tax bodies, which certainly are hampering the business environment in the country. So they need to be addressed as well. And one good thing that I know that we certainly have visionary people in many regulatory bodies who are of the same opinion and working towards it. We just hope we get the results soon enough. So these were the major tenets, and next up, some of the key proposals that we have made. I'm just gonna quickly skip that and just talk about a few major points because I'm sure all of you would have gone ACC's proposal. And something that you should feel proud of is that this year yet again, ACCA took this initiative that our taxation committee on the direction of MNP worked with various partners, including regulators, took their input, including other bodies, chambers, and devised common budget proposals, many of which were accepted and implemented by the decision makers. So that's a big leap forward, and congratulations to you all. Wonderful. Now we are waking up. The energy is coming back. That's good. So some of the key proposals that we have talked about are rationalization of the tax system, which also tie up with the global tenet that we have just discussed, that tax the rich people more, those who are not that rich should instead be facilitated by the state and the taxation policy, create the business environment, have a separate taxation regime for small and medium enterprises, try to bring down the tax rate so that tax avoidance or evasion becomes less of an attractive proposition. So, for example, if you have the tax rate within single digit and the cost of tax avoidance is in double digit, there is actually economic sense in fulfilling your taxation responsibility. I'm not even talking about ethics, professionalism, all those things are very important. I'm just talking purely on the business scene as well. If you make the cost of tax less than the cost of tax avoidance, then what's the logical conclusion? Why would anybody avoid? Yes, subject to ensuring
that there are structural reforms so that there is no harassment for the taxpayer. Because the confidence of the taxpayer is the fundamental tenet. Unless you achieve the confidence of the taxpayer, every other reform would not be able to achieve the desired result. Similarly, we also talked about the upcoming challenges, for example, transfer pricing in the context of CPAC, the upcoming technologies, artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc. All these things are happening around us and around the globe, and they are coming to Pakistan. Are we prepared for that? Let's say we start getting more business to CPAC, the routes become more active, and the consignments start getting cleared using AI or big data on the other side of the border. What would you do? Still use the traditional computers and me and cloak all your customs and taxation channels. Okay. With the international business coming in, inshallah, in Pakistan, and all the transfer pricing happening, how would you tax that? Whose problem would that be? What would be the solution in case of any conflict in terms of whose area of sphere it is? FPRs or one of the provincial bodies? How would you actually account for that? Would this be adjusted? So all these conversations need to be happening, and proudly I can share with you that ACCA is leading the charge for that. We are running this discourse in Pakistan, looking ahead in line with ACCA's themes. So that brings us to the further commentary on some of the key changes that have been introduced in this Finance Act. By the way, how many of you actually went through the Finance Act, other than the people sitting on the stage? Show of hands, very quickly. That's okay. Let me give you a bit of confidence. I might, not now, but later on during the interaction informally, ask you questions about Finance Act. So again, how many of you have actually gone through Finance Act? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, you too. Great. 11. Okay, that's fantastic. So it's good that so many of you have actually taken the trouble to go through that, but I would advise you that all of you should. Even if you are not directly dealing in taxation, as an accounts and finance professional, you should be aware at least of the key fundamental changes. And one of the things that ACC's Taxation Committee has agreed to do going henceforth is also to release official commentaries on these changes. So you'll have that from ACC's formal channel. We've been doing that, but individually within WhatsApp group, etc. But now that would also be released in future formally. So some of the key changes, and this is just a collection of the few key changes as identified by our taxation committee. This is not to say in any way that there haven't been other changes which are not equally important. So these 10 have been shortlisted as perhaps the one making the most impact. Number one, changes regarding the property taxation, the capital gain tax rationalization, about the open plots versus constructed property, and the requirement to purchase through banking channels, which would be discussed more during the panel discussion. The concept of filer versus the new concept of not being on ATL, which actually replaced the concept of non-filer. So now there is no more non-filer existing legally. You are either a filer or you are not on ATL. Does this actually make any difference? Yes, it does. We'll be discussing about that. Requirement to do all major transactions above allowable limit through banking channel, or if you are not doing that, you'll be actually incurring additional tax cost while not being allowed that cost as a tax allowable expense. So that's actually a kind of double penalty. Then special taxation regime for small and medium enterprises, which we have so vehemently advocated for. Intercorporate dividends, the policy has changed somewhat. The minimum tax on services sector. As Sajid also mentioned, while it's a good step that now we are moving back towards rationalization and away from these subjective measures such as presumptive taxation and minimum taxation, still there is a lot of these elements available within our tax regime. And what they do is actually that they encourage people not to keep proper records, not to come towards rationalization. When these measures were introduced, for those of you who have any interest in this, it was argued that these are temporary measures. These are just stopgap arrangement till we actually collect data. And most of these measures were supposed to be data collecting exercises. But later on, they were turned into cash cows. That now we are getting major revenue from these, so we don't need to do away with this. Okay? Yes, we might be getting revenue from this, but the cons are much more. We are actually encouraging a non-compliance culture where subjective measures are taken, where under the table culture is being promoted, which is against the professional ethics. Next up, the change of taxation regime for steel sector, and before that, we also have settlement of income tax refunds through promissory note. Before the Finance Act, it existed for income tax refunds, but it's been for sales tax refunds, but it's been extended to income tax refunds as well in the Finance Act. The taxation regime for steel sector has been changed, which has impacted the sector largely, and it is one of the key themes that we'll be discussing in the panel discussion. So, sirs, I'm giving you a head start to be prepared for the questions that are to come. Next up are the changes that have been introduced with regard to SR 11251/2011, which is basically the withdrawal of the exemptions for the 5 export-oriented sectors. The input tax credit adjustable to supplies made to unregistered persons are disallowed on pro rata basis for which sales invoices do not bear the CNIC number of the buyer. In other simpler terms or pure English, it's about that thing you've been hearing on the news that the CNIC is a must for purchases above certain limit if you are purchasing from a sales tax registered person. So that's been a major change as well. And there are a few other miscellaneous matters that we'll be discussing. That brings us to the end of this quick overview of ACC's 12 global tenets, the way our taxation subcommittee has been working, our contributions, as well as the key changes of the Finance Act. So with that, I'll be concluding for the panel discussion. Okay. So next up is the section for which I've been waiting the most. I don't know about you. Will you? Or you just want me to continue? Come on. You don't want the panel discussion? How many of you want the panel discussion? Yeah. We are just shy to raise our hand on ourselves. Okay, that's fine. So we are going to start the panel discussion now. For the panel discussion, you are already been introduced with our esteemed panelists. I think perhaps it would be better if I sit there and do it. So for the panel discussion, we'll first ask the few questions that we have from our panelists, and then hopefully, if we still have time, we'll open the forum and take your questions. So my first question is directed to Chairman PRA, Mr. Javed Ahmed. And that's a question that a lot of members have been asking us. And you have been asking us to put that to the regulators. Javed sir, our members would like to know that how are you approaching the issue of tax harmonization? What has been done and what can we expect?
Thank you very much. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. When you were asking the audience to raise hands about the panel discussion, I was just wondering that very few hands will be raised, and by that way will be saved. So unfortunately, there's a lot of hands. So I'm here. As regards to the efforts on harmonization front, it's a very tedious path. We have been trying for the last 5 years to come closer on any conclusion, but unfortunately, things are lingering on one way or the other. Very recently, about 4 or 5 months back, we formed an inter-provincial coordination committee. One committee is at the federal level, and that deals with the matters between the provinces and the state and the federation. And the other one that we have formed, in fact, PRA took the initiative and we took the lead in proposing this forum. So we 4 provinces are the members, and Federation has also joined. It's a good thing is that the FPR is also with us. What we have done so far, we have identified the areas where we are at loggerheads with each other. One very key question is the principle of taxation in terms of sales tax on services. And that is the old conflict of principle of origin and principle of termination. Sindh Revenue Board in the Sindh province, they don't agree on our proposal, which is internationally acknowledged that this is a consumption tax. So it can be, it should be taxed on the basis of termination. So we are trying. The other issues with Federation includes the input adjustment and the definition and the conclusive and comprehensive definition of service, which unfortunately is nowhere in the world even. Very recently, the European Union has tried to come up with a definition of the service. Well, let's see whether it is accepted, acknowledged internationally or not. So, in our bid to facilitate the businesses, we opted for Stripe. That is the sales tax real-time invoice verification system. It's a great effort by FPR. We were the first one. 2 years back, with a very fanfare, we opted for that system. To our mind, that was an opportunity for us to facilitate the businesses so that they could quickly reconcile their input claims and get the due share. But unfortunately, soon after the launch, FPR unilaterally withdrew from that. But now they agree on that, and now the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, they have also joined us. And hopefully, SRB will be the last one because of the obvious reasons, because they don't want to share anything. Because the principle of origin that suits them. So we are inching towards the harmonization on that front as well. After that, we sat together and tried to resolve the issue of harmonized sales tax rates. But unfortunately, this year we could not do that. And hopefully, during the next financial year and well before the next budget, we'll be doing that. Right now, we have a standard rate of 16%. SRB has a 13% tax rate, and KP and Balochistan, they have 15%. Besides, there are some reduced rate schemes. But one good example of harmonization was the issue of taxation of the oil tankers. They threatened us consecutively for 3 years to go on strikes, and in fact, they did stage strikes, and we faced a lot of problems on that. But better sense prevailed amongst the provinces, and we agreed a sharing formula, which is like this, that if the service is originated from one province and terminated into some other province, the 50-50% will be the sharing of the taxation, tax collection. And if the origination and termination is within the same province, 100% will go to that province. So that is very successful. In fact, the Lahore High Court, during writ petition, called Attorney General Pakistan, and a committee has been constituted under the Attorney General of Pakistan to dilate upon the laws, which are very different from province to province. For obvious reasons, Sindh Revenue Board has an edge over others because of the geographical location, which they don't want to do away with that. And for the other provinces, we are just at the mercy of that harsh principle of taxation on the principle of origin. But anyway, that forum is now working. And every month or two, we hold a meeting. And similar efforts are with the Federation as well. But unfortunately, and to my dismay and all my colleagues, FPR this year came up with a very unique sort of taxation measure, and that is the taxation of the restaurants. And that is causing problem in two ways. One, the people are being made to sort of pay taxes to both the authorities, federation and the provinces. And the second is that it is causing confusion amongst the businesses as well. So they say that this is a sale of goods and it should be taxed at the rate of 7.5%. We say that this is as usual all over the world, apart from the takeaways. It is a provision of the service because it's a combination of goods and services. So in a meeting, I suggested to the chairman FPR that if you are opening up this Pandora's box, it will open up so many fronts. Like we have very similar natured goods and services combined sort of sectors, where the smaller portion is service portion and the bigger portion is the goods portion, like the sale of oil, like the electricity, things like that, like the natural gas. So he said that no worries, no issues. But my stance on restaurants is very unequivocal, and I am not going to budge upon that. So anyway, lately he agreed that the FPR, till the resolution of the issue, will not pursue the taxation on the restaurants. But unfortunately, some of the local offices, they are issuing notices to the restaurants. So the crux of this discussion is that everybody is open to resolve these issues, but it's a time game. One very recent example is that of the taxation of the e-commerce. So again, we have some issues. Federation is proposing that you should have a lower rate of taxation because of the upcoming sector. On the other hand, provinces, they need money and they need good collection from from these sectors. So they are not going back to their stance where standard rate is the taxation rate. So things are moving back and forth. We are trying, but I am hopeful that during this year, many of the unresolved issues, they'll be resolved and things will be moving in a positive way.
Thank you very much. I think we should appreciate sharing. Next up is the question directed to Mr. Irfan Ilyas, the partner at Irfan & Co. And again, that's the feedback we've been getting from our members. Irfan sir, our members would like to know your opinion about the recent changes introduced by Finance Act regarding the steel sector taxation. How do you view that? And do you think that would be a positive step resulting in better economic activity, or perhaps something different should have happened? Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Reference to this Finance Act and especially to steel sector के साथ गवर्नमेंट हर 2 साल बाद कुछ ना कुछ खेलती रही, शरारत होती रही. कभी हम फिक्स में चले गए, कभी एग्जेम्प्ट कर दिया, कभी बिलेट्स के ऊपर लगा दिया, फिर बिजली के ऊपर हमने टैक्स लेना शुरू कर दिया कि जी जितना यूज करेंगे. अब हम नॉर्मल रेजीम की तरफ जा रहे हैं. सो ये कुछ सेक्टर्स ऐसे होते हैं जहां पे शायद क्लैरिटी भी नहीं आती, और बीइंग जनरल पब्लिक वी आर ओवर क्लेवर, और उसमें लॉयर्स, अकाउंटेंट्स, वी आर द वंस, हैकर्स तो हम लोग ही हैं ना, बताने वाले कि ये करना ये नहीं करना. सो स्टील के साथ गवर्नमेंट, ये बहुत बड़ा एक सेक्टर है, और जब इन्होंने इसके ऊपर लगाया इनिशियली कि जी ये नॉर्मल रिजीम में चलेगा, आज से कोई 12-15 साल पुरानी बात है, तो उस वक्त फ्लाइंग इनवॉइसेस बेतहाशा होनी शुरू हो गई. टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर से फ्लाइंग इनवॉइसेस खत्म हुई तो स्टील सेक्टर में इनवॉइसेस होनी शुरू हो गई. चलते 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 अब हम आ गए कि जी ये बिजली के ऊपर आप जितनी बिजली यूज होगी वो उसके ऊपर लगा लें. बिजली पे भी ये हुआ कि जो स्टील मैन्युफैक्चरर है वो फंस गया. उसके बाद जितनी चेन है, वो जितने भी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर, डीलर, बीच में इन्वॉल्व थे, दे वर ऑल आउट ऑफ दिस टैक्स. सो ये तो बैकग्राउंड थी. आई थिंक वी आर मूविंग इन अ राइट डायरेक्शन अपेरेंटली, क्योंकि जब तक आप किसी चीज को फिक्स कर देते हैं तो फिर उसमें लूप होल्स बहुत ज्यादा हो जाते हैं. दे आर ऑलवेज देयर. जो नहीं भी उस रिजीम में आ रहा था वो पुश करके अपने आप को उस रिजीम में ही रखता है, हुक और क्रोक जिस तरह से भी. जब आप नॉर्मल की तरफ जाएंगे स्टील सेक्टर को कि जी आपने प्रोडक्शन के हिसाब से चलना है, किससे खरीदा किससे बेचा, तो शायद फॉर सम टाइम 3-6 months हमें रेवेन्यू उतनी कलेक्शन ना हो, क्योंकि हमने अपनी इकोनॉमी को उतना एजुकेट भी नहीं किया, उस सेक्टर को हमने एजुकेट भी नहीं किया. यहाँ पे आप चले जाएं जहाँ पे स्टील मार्केट्स हैं, तो वहां पे वो हाजी साहब बैठे होंगे बनियान और धोती पहन के, और उन्होंने कहना है बाबू जी ये इधर चला गया ट्रक ते इधर चला गया. उनसे कहो जी सेल्स टैक्स रिटर्न देनी, वो क्यों होता है? लॉयर जाके उसे कहे कि जनाब 5,000 रुपये महीने के दे, मैं ये रिटर्न कराऊंगा. बाबू जी 60,000 रुपये, ये तो मसला ही कोई नहीं, 50 में आगे देंगा, कम हो जाएगा. सो आई एम सॉरी बट आई एम टू ब्लंट, बट दिस वाज एक्चुअली हैपनिंग. सो हमने अपनी शायद इकोनॉमी को उस तरह से एजुकेट भी नहीं किया. जैसे उमर ने भी एक एग्जांपल दी कि जी इंग्लैंड में जब लॉ इंप्लीमेंट हुआ तो दे टुक 3 years educate people, seminars, and then eventually उसको इम्प्लीमेंट किया. हमारे यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम यह है कि अगर आप उस तरह से एजुकेट करना शुरू करें, बाय दैट टाइम एक्चुअली यू लूज द वैल्यू ऑफ इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ दैट लॉ. शायद इसलिए गवर्नमेंट को फौरी करना पड़ जाता है कि जनाब आप भी यहां से निकल जाएं और आप उसको नॉर्मल सेक्टर में, मिनिमम सेक्टर में चले जाएं और बताएं किससे खरीदा किससे बेचा. अब हमें प्रॉब्लम यह है कि जनाब हमने ये नहीं बताना किससे खरीदा किससे बेचा. भाई क्यों नहीं बताना? जैसे शब्बर साहब कहते हैं कि जनाब CNIC आजकल तो जो आपसे मांगने वाला है वो उसके पास भी CNIC नंबर तो होगा, लेकिन हम वो बिजनेस बताना नहीं चाहते. क्यूमुलेटिव फैक्टर्स हैं जो कि सिंस 91-92 जब हम फिक्स्ड रिजीम में चलते रहे, स्पेशलाइज्ड इंडस्ट्री के हिसाब से चलते रहे, तो लोगों को उस चीज की आदत हो गई. अब हम नॉर्मल में आना बड़ा मुश्किल है. बट apparently in my view we are moving in a right direction. ये ऐसा ही होना चाहिए था और शायद 2 साल पहले होना चाहिए था. We are late.
Thank you very much, Irfan sir. Next question is directed towards Mr. Ashik Ali Rana, advocate, who is the acting president of Lahore Tax Bar Association. Thank you, sir, for sparing time and gracing the event today. Ashik sir, our members would like to know that what are your views about the volume over margin? There has been a voice from the regulator sector, like Javed Saab also pointed out, that the governments need to have finances so that they can fund their operations. And then there has been a voice from our members, professionals, intelligentsia, who have been saying that we need to pursue a policy of volume over margin, where we actually focus more on broadening the base, and as a key step we have to reduce the rates so that it becomes more attractive of a proposition for people. Just like Irfan Saab was saying, unfortunately some harsh facts that we have a culture regarding taxation, how certain things work. So when you reduce the cost, that become a key variable factor, a key attractive point to bring people towards that change, that crossover. So if you would like to share your views, sir, how do you and the tax bar view this?
Thank you very much, Mursa. It is indeed a matter of immense pleasure. I express my gratitude to all the participants for warm welcome and unmatchable great hospitality. First of all, thank you Sajil Aslam, Head of ACCA Pakistan, Ali Zain Mir Saab, Chairman ACCA Coordination Committee, or all the worthy Chairman, Mr. Javed Ahmed Saab, इरफान इलियास साहब, हमारे लॉ टैक्स बार के फॉर्मर वाइस प्रेसिडेंट भी हैं, मेरी कुछ किस्मत उनके साथ प्लेयर्स में बैठा हूँ आज, उमर जहीर मीर साहब एंड अरशद साहब, थैंक यू वेरी मच. बेसिकली जो टैक्स बेस है हमारा, अक्सर जब मुलाकात होती है चेयरमैन साहब से भी, फिनांस मिनिस्टर से भी, ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ टैक्स बार, बेसिकली जो टैक्स बार का रोल होता है वो एज अ स्टेक होल्डर होता है. हम एम्बेसडर होते हैं टैक्स पेयर्स और टैक्स कलेक्टर के दरमियान. बेसिकली हमने एजुकेट करना होता है ٹیکس پیئرز کو کہ وہ اپنا ٹیکس ڈیو جو ہے وہ جمع کرائیں. کوئی بھی ملک جو ہے وہ ٹیکس کلیکشن کے بغیر نہیں چل سکتا، یہ بات ایڈمیٹڈ ہے. ٹیکس نیٹ کو بڑھانے کے لیے حکومت وقت کو یہ ایسی پالیسیز بنانی چاہیے کہ ٹیکس بجائے ایگزسٹنگ ٹیکس پہ بوجھ ڈالنے کے ٹیکس نیٹ کو بڑھائیں. جو ٹیکس آلریڈی دے رہے ہیں بجائے اس پہ وہ 161 کا آرڈر بھی اسی پہ ہو رہا ہے، سلیکشن آف آڈٹ بھی اسی کی ہو رہی ہے، اپیل میں بھی وہی جا رہا ہے، وکیل کے پاس بھی وہی جا رہا ہے. جو بندہ ٹیکس نہیں دے رہا، جو ٹیکس نیٹ میں نہیں ہے، اس کو کوئی پوچھنے والا نہیں ہے. ہمیں بجائے ٹیکس نیٹ کو بڑھانے کے لیے ایگزسٹنگ ٹیکس پہ تھوڑا ریلیف دینا چاہیے، اس کو ایز اے فرینڈلی ٹیکس پالیسیز دینی چاہیے، اور جو لوگ ٹیکس نیٹ میں نہیں ہیں ان کو ٹیکس نیٹ میں لے کے آنا چاہیے. شکریہ جی.
عمر بھائی ایک اگر اجازت دیں میں ایک چھوٹا سا کمنٹ اس میں.
مجھے پتا تھا جی.
نہیں اسے بیس آئی ایم ناٹ ٹاکنگ اباؤٹ بیس، تھوڑی سی ہسٹری. 2001 آرڈیننس انکم ٹیکس آرڈیننس آیا، 2002 سے امپلیمنٹ ہوا، مشرف صاحب کا دور تھا. آئی ایم ناٹ اینی اسٹیٹمنٹ کائنڈ آف اینی پولیٹیکل اسٹیٹمنٹ. لیکن جو ابھی عاشق نے بات کی، اٹس اے ونڈرفل پن پوائنٹنگ دی نیل آن دا ہیڈ کہ جناب ہمیں بیس بڑھانی ہے اور آپ ان سے پوچھیں جو نیٹ میں نہیں ہے، ایفیشنسی اس میں لگائیں. ابھی ریسنٹلی ایک ایگزامپل ہوئی، میرے پاس ایک گورنمنٹ ڈپارٹمنٹ ہے جس کو 100% FBR فائنانس منسٹری سبسڈی دیتی ہے اور وہ کام کرتا، اور اس کے اوپر 500 ملین کا ٹیکس ڈیمانڈ ریز ہو گئی. انہوں نے وہی ڈیمانڈ اٹھا کے فائنانس منسٹری FBR کو بھیجی کہ جناب ہم نے یہ ٹیکس لگ گیا، آپ پے کریں. وہیں سے پیسے آئے، آگے پے ہو گئے. Who got the benefit? It's only tax to GDP. Maybe that would make effect. Tax to GDP کو فرق پڑا. لیکن جب ہم اپنے جو ایگزسٹنگ ٹیکس پیئر ہے نا، رائٹ اور رانگ، غلط کیا ہے صحیح کیا، کوئی بات نہیں، اس کو چلنے دیں. میں ایگزامپل دینے لگا تھا کہ مشرف کے دور میں 2002 میں جب یہ آرڈیننس آیا، انکم ٹیکس آرڈیننس 2001 امپلیمنٹ ہوا، تو 2-3-4 سال ڈپارٹمنٹ کھیلتا رہا کہ جی آڈٹ کیسے کرنا. ٹیکس پیئر بھی بڑا خوش تھا، آڈٹ نہیں ہو رہا تھا. تو ہم نے وہ 2-3-4 سال ڈپارٹمنٹ نے آڈٹ نہیں کیے. کیا ان سالوں میں ٹیکس ریونیو نہیں بڑھا؟ ایک چھوٹی سی ایگزامپل ہے، 1947 سے 1997 50 ایئرس ہم 1 ٹریلین کے بجٹ پہ تھے. 2007 10 ایئرز میں وی ور مور دین 2 ٹریلین پلس بجٹ. ایسا کیا ہوا تھا کہ 10 سالوں میں اکانومی ڈبل ہو گئی؟ مے بی دیر وڈ بی سم ادر فیکٹرز، بینکس اور ٹیلی کام سیکٹر تھا. لیکن وہ 3-4 سال میں نے خود اپنے ایکسپیرینس میں دیکھا ہے کہ بزنسز SME کو میں نے گرو کرتے دیکھا. جب یہ نہیں پتا تھا کہ جناب یہ تنگ نہیں کریں گے، پوچھیں گے نہیں، تو دیکھو 100 میں سے 80 دے دیے، 20 کی تھوڑی سی کٹی کر لی، پر اگلے سال 80 کے 88 بھی تو دیے نا. ٹیکس ریونیو ہمارا بڑھا تھا. اس وقت بھی پالیسی میٹر میں یہ کرنا چاہیے گورنمنٹ کو کہ جو ٹیکس پیئر آ گیا ہے اسے کہیں تھینک یو ویری مچ، اٹس اے ونڈرفل جاب، یو آر ہیئر. جو شبر صاحب نے جیسے شروع کیا تھا کہ جی جتنے ہمارے کمرشل میٹرز لگے ہوئے ہیں یا انڈسٹریل میٹرز لگے ہوئے ہیں، 3.5 لاکھ کمرشل میٹر وابڈا کو سن لو نا کہ جناب یہ دفتر چل رہا ہے، وہ آپ کا میٹر کمرشل کر جاتی فوراً. FBR والا بندہ نکل کے شاید گھر گھر یہ نہیں کر سکتا، لیکن وابڈا والا ہر مہینے ہر دکان پہ ہر پریمیسز پہ آتا ہے، اس کو پتہ لگے جناب اس پریمیسز میں دفتر ہے، وہ کمرشل کر جائے گا. آپ کا بجلی کا بل بھی کمرشل ہو جائے گا، پانی بھی کمرشل ہو جائے گا. وائی ناٹ وی میک اٹ نیسسری، جو کہ اب امپلیمنٹیشن آئی ہے کہ جناب آپ کا NT نمبر ہونا چاہیے. NT نمبر ہے گڈ انف، نہیں ہے میٹر بند کر دیں. انڈسٹریل کمرشل جس کے اوپر نمبر نہیں لگا ہوا NTN کا، بند کر دیں. بٹ یو آر ڈوئنگ دیٹ کمرشل ایکٹیویٹی. سو ایگزسٹنگ ٹیکس پیئر کو چھوڑ دیں. شاید ہم ٹیکس ریٹ بیس بھی ہمیں کم کرنے کی ضرورت نہیں. شاید آپ کا کوشچن بھی یہ تھا کہ ٹیکس ریٹ کی بیس ہم کم کریں، ہمیں وہ بھی ضرورت نہیں ہے. ہمیں ضرورت ہے کہ جو ایگزسٹنگ ٹیکس پیئر ہے اس کو شاباش دیں. آئی کین گارنٹی، میں نے 3 سال خیبر پختونخوا منسٹری میں کام کیا، جب صاحب گھر بیٹھے 11 12 13 فائنانس یہ جو سروسز ایکٹ ہے وہ خیبر پختونخوا کا میرا لکھا ہوا ہے. آئی واز دی کنسلٹنٹ. میں گارنٹی کر سکتا ہوں گورنمنٹ کو 3 سال آپ ایگزسٹنگ ٹیکس پیئر کو نہ پوچھیں اینڈ the revenue would increase more than 40% in 3 years. Do you believe that? آپ سارے انڈسٹری میں بیٹھے.
Thank you, Irfan Sahab, اور آپ کو یہ سن کے خوشی ہوگی that's a key core proposal of ACCA. We've been advocating that for past 5 years. Which brings us to Arshad Sahab, the partner at Arshad Law Associates and a dear friend and senior member. Arshad Sahab, آپ سے ہمارے members کا سوال یہ ہے کہ what do you believe is the overall impact on economy of the changes introduced by this Finance Act? If you can briefly give us a good overview.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. یہ جو کوشچن کیا گیا ہے کہ جی کیا کیا اس میں امپیکٹ ہوا اوور آل، تو میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ جی سب سے پہلے تو ہمیں یہ دیکھنا چاہیے کہ کس طرح کی اکانومی ہونی چاہیے، کیونکہ جو ٹیکسیشن ہے یا دوسری پالیسیاں ہیں وہ ساری اسی طرف جاتی ہیں. لیکن اس سے بھی بنیادی کوشچن یہ ہوتا ہے کہ جی ایک اسٹیٹ کا ایگزسٹنس کس لیے ہے. تو ایک اسٹیٹ کا ایگزسٹنس اس لیے ہوتا ہے کہ جو وہاں کی پبلک ہے اس کی جتنی فیکلٹیز ہیں، جو اس کی قابلیت ہے، وہ ان کا میکسیمم استعمال کر کے اپنے آپ کو بھی خوشحال کریں، خوش زندگی گزاریں اور ملک بھی ترقی کریں. اس بنیادی مقصد جو اسٹیٹ کا ایگزسٹنس کا ہے، اس کے لیے مختلف اکنامک پالیسیاں بنتی ہیں یا دوسری بھی پالیسیز بنتی ہیں. تو فسکل پالیسی یا ٹیکسیشن پالیسی اس کا ایک سب پارٹ ہے، سب سیٹ ہے. تو ٹیکسیشن میں ہمیں سب سے پہلے یہ دیکھنا چاہیے کہ جی کیا یہ ٹیکسیشن اکانومی کے لیے ہے یا اکانومی ٹیکسیشن کے لیے. تو ہمیں یہ بنیادی چیز یہیں سے سٹارٹ کرنی چاہیے کہ یہ جو ہم ٹیکسیشن کر رہے ہیں اس سے اکانومی پرموٹ ہوگی یا اس پہ نیگیٹو امپیکٹ ہوگا. تو ٹیکسیشن اکانومی کے لیے ہو، نہ کہ اکانومی ٹیکسیشن کے لیے ہو کہ جی آپ ہمیں یہ بتائیں کہ جی اچھا آپ بزنس کر رہے ہیں تو بزنس ہم اس لیے نہیں کر رہے کہ ہم ایف بی آر کے لیے بزنس نہیں کر رہے. یہ ڈپارٹمنٹ کو، گورنمنٹ کو یہ سمجھنا چاہیے. لیکن اس کے مقابلے اپوزٹ اس کا یہ ہوتا ہے کہ جی لوگ بزنس کریں، لوگ اپنا بزنس گرو کریں جس سے ٹیکس خود بخود زیادہ آئے. تو پالیسیز ایسی ہونی چاہیے جس سے ٹیکسیشن ایز اے کنسیکوینس آف اکنامک ایکٹیویٹی بڑھے، نہ کہ وہ اس اکنامک ایکٹیویٹی کو روک دے. تو ہم نے اب یہ دیکھنا کہ جی اس سال جو فائنانس ایکٹ آیا اس سے کیا ہمارے بزنس گرو کریں گے یا اس میں سلو ڈاؤن ہے. ابھی تک تو جو ہے اس کا جو فیڈ بیک جنرلی ہے وہ تو اتنا اچھا نہیں ہے. اس میں اگرچہ وہ رائٹ ڈائریکشن ہو سکتی ہے بٹ اٹ وڈ بی اوور دی ایئرس، فوری طور پہ اس طرح کا نہیں ہے. مثال کے طور پر اور دوسرے یہ ہے کہ جی ٹیکسیشن کے سسٹم میں جسٹنیس، فیئرنیس ہونی چاہیے. ابھی اس میں جیسے عمر صاحب نے کہا کہ جی کچھ ایسی کیا امپیکٹ ہو سکتا ہے. ایک مثال ہے میں آپ کو دیتا ہوں کہ جی ٹیکسیشن میں کتنی قسم کے ہم نے ٹیکسز بنا دیے ہوئے. فائنل ٹیکس ہے، نہیں جی یہ نارمل لا میں ٹیکس ہے، ایک اور منیمم ٹیکس ہے، اور منیمم ٹیکس بھی کوئی ایک سے زیادہ ہے. ایک سیکشن 113 ہے اس میں ہے، اس کے علاوہ ایک الٹرنیٹ کارپوریٹ ٹیکس ہے. یعنی اتنے سارے اس کو ایک ہی انڈیویجول کو جو ہٹ کرتے ہیں وہ والے ہیں. اچھا اب اس میں جو اس سال کیا ہے کہ اس میں منیمم ٹیکسز بڑھا دیے ہیں. منیمم ٹیکس کیا ہے؟ منیمم ٹیکس یہ ہے کہ جی آپ کا نارمل لا میں آپ کی اسیسمنٹ ہوگی، ڈپارٹمنٹ چاہے تو اس کا آڈٹ بھی کرے. آڈٹ کرنے کے بعد اگر وہ دیکھے کہ نہیں جی آپ کا یہ جو آپ کی ڈاکومنٹیشن ٹھیک ہے، آپ نے جو بزنس انکم جو ڈکلیئر کی ہے وہ بھی ٹھیک ہے، سب کچھ ٹھیک ہے، آپ کے اکاؤنٹس پرفیکٹ ہیں، لیکن نہیں آپ سے ہم نے ٹیکس لینا ہی لینا ہے، جتنا آپ کے یہ جو کٹا ہے نا ٹیکس یہ تو آپ کا منیمم ہے ہی ہے. اب یہ میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ یہ ایک بہت ہی نیگیٹو امپیکٹ اس پہ بزنس پہ پڑتا ہے. اس لیے کہ جب آپ نے اس بندے کا، اس ٹیکس پیئر کا ریکارڈ چیک کر لیا، اس کا جو آڈٹ بھی کر لیا، اس کے بعد آپ اس سے کیوں ٹیکس لیں گے اگر اس کا ٹیکس نہیں بنتا تو اس میں 2-3 قسم کے یہ اس طرح سے انہوں نے سیکشن 1300 میں الگ ہے، 153 میں سبسڈ پہ الگ سے منیمم ٹیکس کر دیے. یہ میرے خیال میں بہت نیگیٹو امپیکٹ ہے. اسی طرح ہمیں یہ دیکھنا چاہیے کہ جی ہم نے किस तरफ जाना है। अब
लेकिन
हमारी
अरशद साहब ये तो पहले भी मौजूद थे, हम फोकस कर रहे हैं ऑन द चेंजेस।
जी,
अगर आप कोई एक दो मेजर चेंजेस का बताएं
इस
हमें।
साल ये ज्यादा कर दिया गया है, बहुत से नए सेक्टर्स इसमें शामिल किए गए, मैं इसलिए इसको हाईलाइट किया। दूसरा हमें ये देखना है कि जी गवर्नमेंट किस तरफ, क्या उसकी पॉलिसी क्या है, उसकी इंटेंशंस क्या है, उसकी अप्रोच क्या क्या, उसके हिसाब से चल रहे हैं। मिसाल के तौर पे हमें हमने मतलब ये हर बंदे की जुबान पे है कि जी हम 50 लाख घर बनाएंगे, 1 करोड़ नौकरियां देंगे ओवर 5 years। ठीक है, बिल्कुल बहुत अच्छा। अब हमने देखना है कि जो हमारी जो ये कोई पॉलिटिकल उस तरह की बात नहीं है, ये देखना कि हमारी क्या हम उस तरफ जा रहे हैं, ये देखना। तो इसके लिए देखें कि हम घरों के लिए, अब जब हमने कैपिटल गेन का शायद इरफान साहब ने जिक्र किया, उस पे इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टीज पे कि जी प्लॉट्स पे होगा या उस पे उसका जो ड्यूरेशन है वो ज्यादा कर दिया, उसके लिए कि जो फ्री 4 साल का उसका प्लॉट का कर दिया, घर का कर दिया, 8 साल कर दिया प्लॉट्स के लिए। उससे पहले सेल करेंगे तो आपको 1 साल में करेंगे तो 100% पे टैक्स देंगे, 1 साल के बाद करेंगे, 8 साल से पहले करेंगे तो 75% पे कैपिटल गेन टैक्स होगा। अब एक तरफ हम चाहते हैं कि जी हमारी ये एक्टिविटी बढ़े, दूसरी तरफ हमने उसको जरा उस पे टैक्सेशन का बर्डन बढ़ा दिया। इसी तरह घरों के लिए जाहिर है ये जो ईंटों की जरूरत होती है ब्रिक्स के लिए, उसके लिए सारे हमने फिक्स टैक्स वहां पे लगा दिया, सेल टैक्स में कर दिया। इसी तरह हमने उसमें सीमेंट में भी उसमें फेडरल एक्साइज ड्यूटी वो बढ़ा दी थी। तो हमने ये देखना है कि हम किस तरह उस तरफ जा रहे हैं, उसको प्रमोट करना है। अभी ये नॉन टैक्सेशन बात है, बट फिर भी ये इसी के लिए कि ये आपने जो 1 करोड़ नौकरियों की बात है, तो अभी 21 अगस्त का एक नोटिफिकेशन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस का है कि जी कोई नई पोस्ट क्रिएट नहीं की जाएगी। बिल्कुल ठीक है, ना करे, अगर गवर्नमेंट में इतनी सख्त नहीं है तो वो बिल्कुल नहीं करनी चाहिए, बट प्राइवेट सेक्टर को प्रमोट करें। आपकी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी इस वक्त डाउन है, इसको आपने प्रमोट करना है, तो इसके लिए हमें टैक्सेशन में राहत करनी चाहिए, ना कि उसको इतना स्ट्रिक्ट करना चाहिए। कभी भी रिसेशन में टैक्सेशन नहीं बढ़ाई जाती, अल्लाह का फजल है कि तो उस तरह का रिसेशन तो नहीं है, बट इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी जब स्लो डाउन हो तो उसमें टैक्सेशन को रिलीफ देना चाहिए। तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली कोई इतना ज्यादा रिलीफ कम से कम इस बजट में तो नहीं है।
बहुत शुक्रिया अरशद साहब। ऑल्दो कुछ सवाल और थे, लेकिन वक्त की कमी की वजह से और क्योंकि हम चाहते हैं दैट आवर ऑडियंस शुड बी गिवन अ चांस, आई विल बी ओपनिंग अप द पैनल, बट आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट बोथ द ऑडियंस to keep the question very brief to the point. Your name, a brief introduction, where you are working, ACCA member, and then to the point question, ABC. And I would request the honorable panelists, keeping in view the less time that we are left with, to be very focused, try to answer the question within a couple of minutes. So with that, if you have any questions, please raise your hands.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Muhammad Azim and I am doing a job as a taxation manager in Akhtar Mahmood Chartered Accountant. So मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि हम बात करते हैं सर्टेनिटी की, जैसे आपने उमर जीर साहब ने अपने प्रेजेंटेशन में बात की है, तो प्रॉपर्टी टैक्स, कैपिटल गेन टैक्स की बात करते हैं तो पहले ईयर बेसिस पे था, अब उन्होंने 4 years ओपन प्लॉट पे और उसके बाद 8 years की बात करती। तो पोटेंशियल जो लोग इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में आते हैं उनको क्या इनका रिलीफ मिलेगा? ठीक है, वो लोग तो फिर, और दूसरी चीज ये है इसी के साथ 2011-12 में सर्विसेज टैक्स आया जो कि था,
माइक थोड़ा मुंह के सामने
2011-12 में सर्विसेज टैक्स आया जो कि पीआरए के रेस्टोरेंट के ऊपर, फिर स्टील सेक्टर की बात हुई, और जैसे अभी फोकस किया जाता है कि जो इंडस्ट्री रेवेन्यू जनरेट करती है हम उसको फोकस कर लेते हैं। जैसे भी पिछले दिनों अगर देखा जाए 4-5 सालों में, 8-10 सालों में, तो रियल एस्टेट के अंदर काफी काम हो रहा था, तो रियल एस्टेट को फोकस करना शुरू कर दिया। तो ये ऐसी स्ट्रेटजीज क्यों नहीं डेवलप की जाती हैं कि जो कि फुली देखा जाए सारी चीजों के अर्ली, ये टेस्टिमोनियल चीजें क्यों क्रिएट की जाती हैं? मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है।
थैंक यू। अच्छा, सवाल के 2 हिस्से हैं, एक हिस्सा तो आई थिंक जावेद साहब आपकी तरफ डायरेक्टेड है, पहला जो हिस्सा है उसको मैं ही क्विकली एड्रेस कर देता हूँ, क्योंकि ये जब हम बजट प्रपोजल बना रहे थे हमारा इस पॉइंट पे डिस्कशन हुई थी। देखें आप कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडस्ट्री के बारे में समझिए कि उसमें डिफरेंट एक्टिविटीज हैं आपकी प्रॉपर्टी बिजनेस में एक कंस्ट्रक्शन की एक्टिविटी है एक आपकी ट्रेडिंग की इन्वेस्टमेंट की एक्टिविटी है हमारे यहाँ एक बड़ा यूनिक कॉन्सेप्ट है जो कम मुल्कों में है फाइल का आप यूरोप अमेरिका चले जाएं कहें जी मुझे फाइल खरीदनी है वो आपकी शक्ल देखेंगे क्या खरीदना है फाइल खरीदनी है व्हाट इज फाइल यू वांट अ प्लॉट ऑफ लैंड यू वांट अ हाउस यू वांट अ प्रॉपर्टी आइडिया ये है कि आप कंस्ट्रक्शन की एक्टिविटी प्रमोट करते हैं जिससे इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी जन्म लेती है और जैसे अरशद साहब ने कहा जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्रिएट होती है अच्छा अगर आप एक आर्टिफिशियल बबल बना रहे हैं जिसमें ब्लैक मनी पार्क हो रही है साथ आप कह रहे हैं कि मैंने इकोनॉमी डॉक्यूमेंट करनी है और मैंने बिजनेस एक्टिविटी जनरेट करनी है तो हाउ वुड दैट वर्क मीन अब ये जो एक चेंज आया है द वे आई सी इट इज कि अब आपको पता है कि अगर मैंने प्लॉट लिया है और मैं उस पर कंस्ट्रक्टेड प्रॉपर्टी कर रहा हूं तो 4 साल से पहले अगर मैं उसको बेच दूंगा तो मुझे इतनी एडिशनल कॉस्ट पड़ेगी अब उस एडिशनल कॉस्ट की वजह से एक इन्वेस्टर या कोई शख्स जो सिर्फ ब्लैक मनी पार्क कर रहा है और उसने फाइल लेके सेल करनी है अपना मार्जिन करके और वो बबल क्रिएट होना है जिससे उस प्रॉपर्टी की प्राइस इतनी बढ़ती जानी है कि लोअर मिडिल अपर मिडिल तो छोड़ें इवन एलीट के भी एक सेगमेंट की शायद कुव्वत खरीद में ना रहे और एक आर्टिफिशियल बबल क्रिएट हो तो उसकी आपकी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी को कितना फायदा है आपको एक वो नहीं बर्ड्स आई व्यू लेना होता है कि तमाम सेक्टर्स को वो किस तरह इंपैक्ट कर रहे हैं हाँ इस चीज से मैं एग्री करता हूँ जैसे अरशद साहब ने कहा कि जो कंस्ट्रक्शन रिलेटेड थिंग्स हैं ब्रिक्स वगैरह वहां पे आप जो रिलीफ दे सकें वो आप दें सो मैंने 2 मिनट में आपका ये सवाल आंसर किया अगले 2 मिनट के लिए आप जावेद साहब के हवाले हैं सर इन्होंने कहा कि क्यों आप उन सेगमेंट्स को रिलीफ नहीं देते जो सेगमेंट अच्छा परफॉर्म करता है उसके पीछे हम पड़ जाते हैं उसको टैक्स भी ज्यादा करते हैं उसके लिए परेशानियां क्रिएट करते हैं सो योर व्यूज
ये डायरेक्टली क्वेश्चन मेरे पे तो नहीं था लेकिन आपने मेरी तरफ मोड़ दिया है
So you are a very kind guy, but the only one saying related
रेफरेंस था पीआरए रिलेटेड वो रेस्टोरेंट्स का था खैर एनीवे पब्लिक जो फाइनेंस है पब्लिक फाइनेंस 3 एलिमेंट्स हैं one is the public expenditure the other one is the public revenues which includes the taxes and the third one is the debt so जब ये पब्लिक फाइनेंस मैनेजर वी पीपल हम जब बैठते हैं तो हमने इनको बैलेंस करना होता है मैं आपकी इस बात से बिल्कुल एग्री करता हूं कि हमारी पॉलिसीज फ्यूचरिस्टिक्स नहीं है हम ईयरली या डे टू डे या डॉकिज्म व्हाटएवर इट इज हम सिर्फ अपनी बैलेंस शीट जो बनाते हैं या जो भी खोलते हैं उसको बैलेंस करते रहते हैं अब इस पे व्हाई आई लाइक दीज फोरम्स लाइक द ACCA बिकॉज दे आर फ्यूचरिस्टिक इन नेचर ये रिसर्च ओरिएंटेड है इन जगहों पे आके मैं तो बहुत लर्न करता हूं और मैंने ये देखा है कि जितनी इनोवेशन ACCA ने ओवर द इयर्स इंट्रोड्यूस कराई हैं we try to follow that one of my officer is sitting there if I'm not wrong